Alright, so with the release of Bond's No Time to Die film, there's a lot to talk about. But what I would want to talk about most here is the idea of replacing an iconic character, and specifically for Bond. We can have the discussion about what it means for other franchises. Kind of like, I get my opinion for that in this, but this is mainly focused on Bond. Because I don't have much other than that I want to speak about with the death of Bond in this film and kind of this film as a whole. It was a good Bond film. Go check it out if you didn't. If you're not into Bond, it's not going to change your opinion on it. It's not the fresh take to get the newer generation interested in Bond. I'll tell you this. Everyone I know isn't older than like 25, doesn't want to see this movie, has no interest in it. It's something their parents watched, they had no interest in. So it's not the right approach to try and do that, and it wasn't this film. So no one if you weren't interested in Bond originally, you're not going to be interested in Bond now. But off to a rocketing start already. Let's talk about the idea of replacing an iconic character. And I know based on that intro you might say, well, you obviously don't view him as an iconic character because of what you just said. But no, my opinion on Bond is, of course, it's an iconic character. He's up there with the Mickey Mouses of the world, right? The Mickey Mouse, the Homer Simpson, the Peter Griffin. He's iconic, and I realize I just mentioned 3 animated adult cartoons. Well, Mickey Mouse is an adult cartoon. But he's up there, He's up there with the Iron Man. Or, well, I guess... Would you say Iron Man as a character, or would you say Tony Stark? Because let's be real, any Iron Man that comes after Tony Stark isn't going to be as iconic. Or the Captain Americas of the MCU. Or the Christian Bale Batmans, right? Or Batman as a whole, because Michael Keaton is very iconic as Batman as well. So the Batman names as a whole, all these characters are very iconic, and obviously the characters like Harry Potter. All these characters are very iconic characters, right? They're very iconic, they're very long-standing. Less so with the Tony Stark and Harry Potter options because they haven't been around for too long, but we can tell they stand the test of time because they've still been around for over a decade. So they stand a decent test of time. I'd say it's enough to say they will still be iconic in about 10 or 20 years. I believe so anyway, unless the MCU takes a really, really bad turn. But I don't see that happening. Anyway, more importantly, the idea of Bond being replaced because he died. Let's start off with the potential candidates, right? Straight off the bat, right? The candidate number 1 is the 007 that was showing off before he retained the name in this movie. I don't know the actor's name, I don't know the character's name. I'm going to be real, straight off the bat. I don't remember any of these characters' names besides Bond. I watched the movie, and I've watched all the other movies, but I never remember the names of the characters that aren't Bond. I remember them in the movie when I'm watching it, but I'll forget it the minute I walk out the theatre. So, the woman who replaced the 007 name when he was retired, she's a potential option. They built her up in this film, trying to make you like her, trying to show that she's on par with Bond in terms of kind of stature, and kind of is able to clap back at him. He's able to clap back at him, and he's able to do the same. So they're on the same stature, you know what I mean? They were trying to build them up as that, trying to say, she could do the job. But the only issue I have with that is very simple. They'll have to change the name. They can't have the James Bond title on a movie when the person who's playing 007 has no relation to James Bond whatsoever. You couldn't be like James Bond, the work colleague attacks, right? It's not a movie title you could use, right? Which is why I believe the most likely candidate is we're going to get like a 15, 17 year time skip in the next Bond movie, and we're going to have his daughter as the next Bond, or the next character after James Bond. And although people may have problems with that for various reasons, I don't think it's an issue for a lot of reasons. First, the title, right? You can still keep the James Bond title because she's related to James Bond. So it can be as simple as James Bond, The Next Generation, or James Bond New Blood. You know, it can be something that refers to passing on the torch and living up to your father's legacy. Hell, it could be James Bond Brotherhood, taken from Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood, TM, fuck you, or something like that. You know what I mean? But no, they can still keep the name, so the iconic character will still have his name on the title of the movie, so we'll still pull in seats, and people will still go to watch it because it's a James Bond movie, and we have to watch it, which is just me, really. So that is option number one. Also, you will still get a portion of the major James Bond audience to still agree with this, because she has a relation to Bond, so it makes sense for her to still share the Bond name, and you could easily still give her the name James Bond without her actually being James Bond. Let's say she has a massive respect for her father, and is the, you know, kind of like, let's go off the cuff here, pulls a Yamato from One Piece and wants to be her father, or admires her father to a degree where she wants her code name to be 007 James Bond or something like that. So if she's still referred to as James Bond in this film, besides not being James Bond, but you get the idea. And this works solely because she is related to the character. This is why the 007 shown in this movie would not work, because she is not related to the character, so they couldn't keep the character name in any realistic storytelling perspective. They couldn't keep the title of the film because it wouldn't make sense. So I feel like the only option would be the daughter that was shown off in this film, to do a time skip. Now I will say, I don't think your one from this movie would be a bad Bond. I think it's the first movie, it would be a bit rocky, but because she had this experience, she might do alright, honestly, because she had the experience of the previous film and she could probably do it. But it would just make no sense, and it couldn't be a Bond movie. It would have to be renamed to like 007. Like the franchise as a whole would have to be just renamed to 007 to be able to get that to fit. You know what I mean? And that's the major issue. Now I know people are like, well, just regender James Bond, that makes perfect sense. Now I don't think that can happen for many reasons. Now obviously it can happen. Executives have done this before, but the problem is James Bond is a continuous story, right? It's not like, well, it's technically a continuous story. So it's not like the Ghostbusters where you can just reboot it, right? You could reboot James Bond, but there'd be a lot of issues with that. Some unresolved plot points. Now I will say it would be neat to see him go out like that, but it would also... Anyway, as I was saying, they could just reboot the franchise. But I feel like that would not go over well. As we've seen, and I hate to say this, but like female reboots of an iconic character, instead of making new characters in those universes, could cause issues. It causes many problems. And forgetting the political problems, because we're not talking about that. I'm not getting political here, right? I have no issue with them whatsoever as long as they're done well. But also you've got to realize they don't perform. They really haven't. Now I don't know about that Oceans movie, but I know the Ghostbusters movie completely flopped. So you can see they haven't performed well, and other movies like that have not performed well either. Because what you have to understand, when a character is around for long enough, or a franchise is around for long enough where it becomes iconic, something like their gender of that character, not necessarily the main character of the franchise, but that character specifically. Like, you can change the main character of the franchise to a different gender, but you can't change the actual character. Like, if you kill off James Bond, you can have your one who played 007 take up the spot, because she's a different character altogether. But you couldn't have someone take up the character of James Bond that was a different gender. Do you see the issue there? And that's what happened with these Ghostbuster movies and those Ocean movie. Now I don't know how successful the Ocean movie was box office wise, so I'm not going to comment on that. But like, that is that's why they pulled the right move, bringing in that other 007, because they can still have that female 007 while also still having Bond. Now I think they killed off that chance when they killed off Bond, but there are options, right? There are always options. It could be as simple as spin-off movies from now on. So we have a spin-off franchise with that 007 as the new main character. Or you could literally, like, the only reason I have an issue with her becoming the next 007 in terms of the movie, like in terms of James Bond the movie, is simply because they couldn't call it James Bond anymore, and that wouldn't be good for branding, so they wouldn't do that. It's not necessarily an issue. I feel like she does a decent enough job as 07 in this movie, 007 in this movie. I feel like she could grow into the role pretty well. Now, I will say, I am more of a Idris Elba wanter for James Bond. You know, if anyone takes up a different character role or anything like that, you know, I'm more of an Idris Elba guy. Or The Rock, you know, The Rock could do it. Come out of the rubble like, oh yeah, I'm fine. Oh no, what's this now? And I'm completely jacked. And I'm a WWE star? Yeah, you know, it's just a day at the office, bro. And then just, alright. Anyway, as I was saying, you know, the branding is a major issue. And again, you could say, alright, even what I'm proposing with the daughter could not work because people wouldn't like a female Bond. Now, I don't, or so a female main character. Now, I don't think that is a problem. A female Bond, yes. A female, like, James Bond, like, replacing the actual character. But this is a new character after James Bond is not the main character anymore. It's a completely different concept. So having his relative be able to do his position would allow you to still keep the James Bond title for the movies and still have a female protagonist. And I feel like that works fine. And you could easily have it where the other 007 is mentoring this character, so you can reuse that character from this movie. It's a very simple process, you can easily do it. Now, obviously you could say, well then, you saw the backlash for these movies, they might not do it, like, oh, they can't do it. Because James Bond is an iconic character, and even having a different type of person play this character in this iconic franchise won't work. But you see, I think it will, because it would be an issue again, as I said, if the actual character, like the character wasn't replaced, but it was replaced, but like the character itself was just changed into a different person, but it was still the same character. That would be the issue. I feel like if it's a new character, but just they take the main spot position, you can still spin that in a way that most people will still be happy with. Surely, yes, some people won't be happy with it because obviously there's going to be people like that. But as long as it makes storytelling sense and the studio can still keep the name, I feel like it would still work. Now, as I said, I don't think he's dead. I honestly don't. I think he's going to come out. He's going to come out of the rubble with Idris Elba as the actor, or The Rock. I know The Rock isn't even on the table, but that would be great. That would be great. Now, I think I'd be the only one who would find it great, because I feel like it would turn James Bond into more of a comedy in a funny way. Now, I like everything The Rock is in without fail, so I can't say I'm a completely biased person right now. I like everything The Rock is in, so I'm completely biased. Or if it comes out and it's like, oh yeah, I'm Margot Robbie now, let's go. Oh, that'd be funny. Anyway, so it is something to think about, but I feel like they did the right thing by having him have a daughter in this movie, so they've bypassed all the storytelling problems. Now they just have to deal with the media and the fan base, and the only issue I could see with the fan base would be how Bond is decreasing in popularity among the younger generation and the people under the age of 30, and I feel like that's an issue because the core fan base may not like this take, and if the core fan base walk away from the movies because of how they do it, they're not going to have new people coming in, because people are getting, although Bond is iconic, his movie style is not necessarily wanted anymore because everyone's become what I sort of called a movie snob. Is that the right way to put it? That's my opinion anyway. People just don't want to have popcorn movies anymore. They want to have movies that are thought-provoking to them, at least the younger generation. So they won't even give Bond a chance because of the stereotypes, even though I feel like Bond has evolved in a way where it is less, or it is more than a popcorn movie now. It actually has themes and depth to it. But the problem is James Bond has built up a stereotype. So I feel like if it doesn't go right, they're screwed. Now you could say it's a big enough character where he can survive a few bumps in the road, and I agree, so it's probably not that big of an issue. But it is rightly to bring up. Now I will say, look at it this way. They're probably going to come out and James Bond is still alive and Daniel Craig is stuck to that contract for another 50 years and he slits his trade. At the end of the day, it was a good Bond movie and that's all we can ask for. And it has sparked discussion. Very interesting discussion, I might add. I really enjoy talking about this because it's not an issue per se, but it's a very interesting conversation topic. Especially if tackled with tact and I'd say respectfully, I hope so. I hope I didn't go too far with how I portrayed things or whatever. I hope I was respectful from both sides of the argument. Yeah. Hope you really enjoyed that movie, by the way. If you're watching this, you probably saw it. It was a really good movie. I really enjoyed it. I might actually talk about the movie itself sooner or later because I have a lot of thoughts on the movie. It was really good.